A proper authentication system is one of the most important things that you can have in your company if you are somebody who operates fully online, like a SaaS player, like a portal for accessing some information for your customers, could be anything. However, most people actually get it wrong, and there are a lot of things that you have to be careful about when you're building authentication systems. Most people think that just using a third-party auth solution is the solution to go. And in fact, even if you ask your AI agent right now, it's going to suggest to you that you should use a third-party software if you don't know what you're talking about. This video is for those of you who actually want to know what you are talking about. So I'm going to give you some insights into how do you develop a very robust and scalable authentication system which does not get hacked. All right, so first things first, I'm going to start with some of the principles. The number one is, I feel, this is a very opinionated view, but I feel you should always build your own auth. And this is going to be very controversial because there are a lot of solutions in the market, from Auth0 to Clerk to, a list of companies that offer these authentication solutions. But I don't think you should use any of them. And there are a bunch of reasons for them. First of all is, of course, the vendor lock-in. You don't really have your own users' data, which is important. Second is the cost. I feel like some of these features and the way their monetization model works is that they have to price it on something, right? Because just storing user ID, password, that sort of plain text information and building functionality is not expensive, right? So they can't charge you on storage or some weird things. They have to charge you on weird metrics like the number of monthly active users you have, which again, should not be something that you should be punished for. But anyway, I have a bunch of reasons over here. We have also seen in past some hacks that happened on these providers and your data actually was vulnerable. So I don't want to get into my reasons of doing this. I just want to give you an opinion that you should not use third-party authentication systems when you can build your own, which is very, very possible and very easy as well if you just follow it properly. In fact, this is a video that you should probably show your AI agent the next time you're building an authentication system. All right, second thing is, I feel is you should minimize the number of login options. I feel that there is some craze among people that, people just go ahead and see what all options can we provide our people. Can we give them email? Can we give them Facebook login? Can we give them GitHub login? Can we give them Google login? Can we give them passkeys? And, a bunch of more things. I don't know why all of you like to have a lot of these things. It's basically useless, right? So go to your business model, look at how users are coming in the first place, what kind of users you have, and then only provide certain set of login functionalities, because every single login system that you build and adds a complexity layer and it increases your attack surface. The more number of login options you have, the more ways a system can be potentially compromised or can be attacked. Third, I feel, which is also going to be unpopular, but I feel is that email-based login should be avoided if possible. Email is one of the oldest technologies, right? So I'm sure most of you can't really avoid this. But what I want to say with this is that if you have the option to only have sign in with Google, let's say, right? If you have this option, or if you have the option with sign in with Instagram. So I'm doing this as one of the options in a small project that I'm doing right now, which is around Instagram automation. So in that project, I initially started with sign in with Google, and I was figuring out I can maybe add an email-based login. But then I realized my own principles. Why do you have to have so many options when a few would do, right? And in my case, because my application literally requires an Instagram account, just have that as an authentication as well. The reason I say this is because these platforms, these third-party platforms, when you have Google or Instagram, or let's say sign in with Facebook, or any of the OAuth platforms that your platform is built around, if you use these platforms, the trust and the verification goes back to them, right? And if you want to actually check this claim, I want you to try to sign up on a Gmail address with fake information, fake details. It's just not possible, right? At some point, Google will ask for your phone number. It'll ask for some sort of verification in order to not let you spam their own servers. Google has a far bigger problem to avoid spam than on your own platform, right? So if somebody is coming from sign in with Google, chances are that they are not a malicious user. Very high chances. And when I say sign in with Google, I mean the OAuth flow. I do not mean the @Gmail addresses. These addresses can be fake because there are a lot of Gmail addresses in circulation from past. You can even find temporary email IDs that are online, which can just receive an OTP or a confirmation code on a Gmail address without you having a Gmail account. So this is not really the solution, that you just allow only gmail.com. The solution is that you should have an OAuth flow, right? And make sure that in OAuth flow, you actually verify if the account is verified. This is one of the, I'm not remembering the exact details, but I remember something happened in our own company in past where we had a sign in with GitHub. And I think GitHub was the one or Google was the one, I don't exactly remember which platform, but sign in with GitHub actually allows you to sign in with an account which is not verified, right? That means that GitHub has not verified the account and there is a flag, there's a Boolean that you have to check in the OAuth response callback in order to verify that the account that user is signing in is actually verified in the first place, right? So OAuth, if you're implementing it, understand it properly, the whole flow and the parameters and the information that the system returns, and then verify it. Fourth, I feel, which a lot of people actually miss out, is have some stable identifiers, right? So what I mean by this is, for example, somebody who is signing in with Instagram could potentially change their email address, right? Which is associated with that Instagram account. Same with GitHub. So that is not a stable identifier. If you are doing an OAuth check, you have to look at the stable identifier for that specific OAuth platform. And that can be different. For example, with Google, it's almost certainly gonna be your own email address because Google does not allow you to change your email address, right? But with Instagram, that's not gonna be the case. With Instagram, it would be something like Instagram user ID or ID or something, right? Which is like a unique ID that Instagram has given it to store it in the database. So your database should not actually store the email that Instagram is returning, but it should store the ID that Instagram is returning. This is because later when the user has changed their email address, and if you are using the email as a source of truth, you would actually lock out the user out of their own account, right? If you're not using the stable identifiers. There's a second benefit to using stable identifiers generally. Let's say that you already have, sign in with Google enabled, right? And let's say now with Instagram, you added a new feature that you say that, hey, if your email is same, assuming that the email is verified by Instagram, then we can just link your account directly, right? I don't know if you have seen, but there are a lot of annoying websites online that actually do not allow you to sign in with a different identity provider, even if you share the same credentials, like same email address. So if your database schema is nice and good and you have stored, for example, the primary identifier for that specific system like Google or Instagram, it would be easier for you to reconcile the data and even support multiple providers and let them share the common information like email, for example, with some of them. Now, before we move forward to a bunch of more ideas that I have, I also want to tell you that as you're implementing this in your own code base, these suggestions that I'm showing you, this code needs to be tested very well, right? This cannot be shipped directly into production because this is one of the most critical systems in your company, in your organization. And if you want to test this properly, you need to handle all the edge cases. You have to handle like end-to-end test cases. You have to see how the users are using. And this is where today's sponsor, TestSprite, comes into play. TestSprite is an AI testing agent that handles everything in your code base, from creating tests, running them, getting the results back, and having a dashboard for you to show everything. So once you log in into TestSprite dashboard, you're going to see that you have the ability to create and run these tests directly. TestSprite uses MCP protocol and works with any of your IDE system or terminal that you are using for running these agentic coding environments. I have done a full tutorial in the past on how do you use TestSprite to create end-to-end tests that works inside your IDE, shows you test results in the browser, and just does everything in your cursor IDE itself. Not only this, you can connect your TestSprite application with your GitHub repository as well and run TestSprite every single commit. And the simplest way is to just run a web test on TestSprite, which can work on a live application as well, which you can try today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on web test, create test, give it a name like sanity check. Next, I'm just going to add backend API for now, and I'm going to paste our API over here. There is no authentication required. There is no extra testing information that is needed, and I can just click on next. So as you can see, like TestSprite inside its own system is now using AI to generate a test plan against the health check API that I have given it. Now, all of this can actually work in your local system, in your local IDE as well. And as you can see, with a simple API that I just provided it was able to create 10 test cases with these edge cases as well. So let's see. And as you can see, based on the response it got, it actually created really good test cases. The health check response, the structure, the verification of content, response time validation, and the health check accessibility, which is like various network locations and configurations, which is perfect, right? This is what you should have for your APIs generally. So all of this work, as you can see, is pretty simple because an AI is helping you develop these test cases built by the team which understands how to write AI-based test cases. And as you can see, just in no time, you saw that all these test cases are now running and live just with a single API endpoint that I gave it, and it was able to run it, get the response back, figure out all the test cases that it needs to create in order to get this response. So do check out TestSprite. All the links are in the description. And now back to the video. So one of the reasons I also avoid email, which I did not mention to you, is that email-based systems generally are prone to spam as well. Because see, your typical pipeline, the way this works, looks like that you're going to send a verification email. And not only that it's possible that people can have fake email addresses, so that the registration actually succeeds. But it's also possible that somebody, if you haven't set that properly, somebody can actually, bypass your limits of email sending. For example, let's say you don't have rate limits on your endpoint, which again itself is a bad thing, but not having rate limits on registration endpoint is even worse, or even password reset endpoints, right? So password reset, registration, all of that is avoided if you don't have email-based login, which makes it simple for you to not be a part of these sort of attacks, right? So you would not have like a large bill of, somebody just repeatedly sending emails because of your registration or password reset flow. There is a new concept of passkeys as well. Now, until and unless you know that your audience is advanced enough, if they are technical people, or if you're creating a dev tool product sort of thing where your audience is developers or people who are technical, chances are that this would not be a huge success. Most people actually, I see my parents, right? And I see other people which are non-technical, and I don't feel like they actually know what is a passkey, right? Everyone has been taught how emails and password and even sign in with Google, Facebook, these sort of things work. But passkeys is still relatively new. You can implement it if you want. I'm not asking you to not implement it. It's one of the best solutions out there to actually prevent getting hacked. But if you already have sign in with Google and Google supports passkeys, I think you should be sufficient in that scenario, right? You don't have to go out of your way to implement something which your provider, especially if you're just using one provider like sign in with Google or Instagram, if they already support that. So passkeys is optional. I would say it's up to you. If you want to do this, you can do it. But if you don't want to do it, I would not be judging you. Sixth is, if you do go with, email plus password based login, which is, I guess, like the oldest sort of fashion and something that works always, there are a bunch of things that you should be careful about. I have learned in my experience. First is, if possible, keep an allow list of domains, right? For example, gmail.com, outlook.com, and so on. I am not saying that this is a foolproof way of preventing spam, because I know that there is a possibility. This is actually possible. You can get temporary email addresses even with Gmail and Outlook. If you go to a website and you search for like temporary Gmail inbox, you will find websites that are giving you this. But it still keeps, script kiddies and attackers out of place, which are just weird, and they just sign up with any random email addresses. But again, I do realize that this is usually not really possible. So I don't know, if you can do it, great. If you can't do it, also fine. Second is rate limits. Very, 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 very important to have rate limits if you are having an email and a password based combination sort of style. You absolutely cannot ship it without rate limits, and rate limits should be on every endpoint, whether that's login, whether that's register, whether that's password reset. In fact, I would argue that you should also have a captcha system on these on top of your rate limits. So not just rate limits, have a captcha verification system as a mandatory thing if people are suggesting, if the people want to log in with email and password. So I would suggest a hybrid combo, right? If you are supporting email and password, also support something like sign in with Google, right? Let's say if you support this and you also support email plus password combination, then have captcha on email and password login, right? It's not really bad. You are adding friction, yes, but you're also then incentivizing people to move to a different solution which does not has a captcha. So this would be my big tip, right? Finally, something that I can probably talk about in a different video in detail, but I feel one of the important pointers is that stop using JWT for not storing DB tokens. Right? What I mean by this point is that this is something that I also used to do initially, right? So I'm a victim of this pointer. People and tutorials you will find on YouTube and across the world would suggest you that, hey, there's a new interesting way that you can use JSON web tokens in order to create a signed payload, and now you can avoid DB calls for authenticating people, right? If somebody signs in, just issue them a JWT. This also has the data inside the payload itself, which you can use, and then you can avoid DB calls on every backend API call. This is just not required at all for any meaningful scale, until and unless you're not doing like 10 to 20k requests per second on your core backend infrastructure. I don't think you should even be bothered about doing the DB call, because you will make far more database calls generally compared to when you will do with an authentication, right? Auth check is just literally a lookup in DB on an auth table. All you have to do, literally, I'm telling you, I swear, I'm not even joking. All you have to do is have to have an auth table in your database. You should have a token over here. You should have a user ID for that token, and you should have an expiry. That's it. And when a DB call, like when a function call comes into play, like API XYZ, which is supposed to be authenticated, either you have the token inside cookie, or you have, XAuth token if you are using like a custom authentication system. Take this token, literally only thing you have to write is select user ID from auth table where token is exactly this. This query is extremely cheap, extremely simple to run, even if you are doing like 5 to 10K requests per second on a backend, which is a very busy backend, by the way, right? Don't actually get fooled with people who just mention that, oh, you can use JWT and avoid this query, because chances are that in this API itself, you're gonna make 5 more database calls anyway, right? So you might as well just make this call, which is, if you have database configured properly, would take you less than 1 millisecond of time. So the only thing that you are adding is 1 millisecond of latency in your end-to-end API, but the advantages that you get are immense. Instant logout, right? You don't have to blacklist JWTs. So if a JWT token literally gets leaked, there is no way to revoke that. You can't revoke something which is stateless, right? You have to blacklist or hard code the JWT, which would eventually require you to redeploy your code, or you would have to make a database call anyway to see if this token is blacklisted or not, which defeats the whole purpose of JWT, right? And of course, like, you can store much more data. So instead of like storing and cramming everything inside a JWT token itself, you can store a lot more data, or you can retrieve the data using user ID, right? So you can just do a join here with the table, like the user table, and get all the necessary data that you want. Now, of course, it would have consequences once your system is much more than like 10, 20, 30,000 requests per second, and you would start to feel the load. This is one of the things I also covered in the GitHub video, where GitHub actually mentioned something on those lines, that we have reworked our auth system to have JWT so that we don't hit the primary database a lot. But look at GitHub, look at where it is right now, and look at the things that they are doing now. So you don't have to do it right now. That is what I'm saying. Finally, one more point before we close this down, one more thing I can remember is that if you are in fact doing 2FA, I would probably suggest avoid SMS. Right? Use something like Google Authenticator, or just give your user the option to use some sort of authenticator. There are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, SMS is highly unreliable. A lot of places, your SMS, especially if you are doing globally, right? The cost is different. A lot of places it might not work. And there are SIM swapping attacks as well, which allow you to compromise a system if somebody's phone number is compromised, right? So you can look up SIM swapping, what this is. But if you are going for 2FA, just use something like a Google Authenticator or an equivalent for that. Provide users the option. And yeah, one more thing that I forgot to mention, inside the email part, right? This can actually go inside this itself. If you are actually doing the email plus password sort of thing, hash your passwords. Please do that. Learn about hashing algorithms. Learn about bcrypt. You can even use better. You can use Argon, for example, and you can use a bunch of other algorithms as well. But remember, very, very carefully remember that these algorithms are very CPU intensive. I did a Node.js video some time back, which upset a lot of people, which was not exactly on bcrypt, Argon, these sort of things. But remember that these algorithms on high payload size are going to be extremely CPU intensive. So a good idea could be, I'm not saying that you should do that, but it could be that when your user is entering, they have their form over here, they have email, and then they have password over here. When they're entering the password here, on the front end itself, you can bring back the plain text password, and you can also bring back the bcrypt or Argon hashed password from front end itself, so that your backend does not have to do a lot of hashing work. Now, again, this is something that would not bother you if you're only doing like 100, 500 requests per second. This could actually blow up pretty crazy if you suddenly get, let's say, 10K requests per second on your login endpoint, and your server is written in Node.js, single-threaded, and it is getting absolutely hammered because it's trying to bcrypt or Argon hash the password over and over again. These are slow algorithms. Trust me, they can bring down your Node.js server even at, small requests per second sort of things, because they block event loop. I have done a full video on this. I will link it somewhere here if you want to check it out. But the core idea is that you can bring the hash of the passwords from the front end itself in order to compare it on the back end. Yes, it is secure. There is no problem, because if the user passes the hash wrong maliciously, you can always just not log them in, right? So yeah, do let me know in the comments what do you think. So that's all for this video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna see you in the next video very soon. If you're still watching, make sure you leave a comment, "I watched till the end" below to tell me that you were still here, and let me know what do you think about the video.